Check, check.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to call to order the first public hearing of the Public Safety and Security Committee. It is good to see you all here and on Zoom. We are going to kind of do our best to go through. We have adjusted the agenda slightly, but there's some good bills and some good folks. So if no objection from the rankings, we'll go right into our first person, and we'd like to welcome Commissioner Higgins back to the hearing room. So good morning, Commissioner. Welcome. The floor is yours, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, ranking members, Howard and Ciccarella. And I want to say good morning to the chairs, Rep. Boyd and Senator Gaston. My name is Ronell Higgins, and I am the Commissioner for the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection. I am here in strong support of House Bill 6859. This bill illustrates the goals and the steps being taken by DESP to improve operational efficiency and exemplify excellence. I'll begin with our steps to improve operational efficiency. Section 1 aligns the retention policy of sexual assault kits with other forms of evidence. You can find that in lines 28 through 33. Section 2 closes the gaps in legislation to provide consistency regarding serious juvenile offense disclosures for individuals under and over 21 years of age. Section 7 approves operational efficiency by reducing redundant paperwork and clarifying statutes to reduce administrative tasks so that staff can focus on more complicated cases. I am also joined by members of our Connecticut State Police Special Licensing and Firearms Unit for any specific questions regarding to their work. Exemplifying excellency. Sections 4 through 6 refers to security guard training requirements for less than lethal weapons. We're talking about tasers. Section 3 requires law enforcement agencies to opt into the E-Trace system managed by the Federal Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And that is it for now. I won't go on from there. I will add, though, that the E-Trace system had approximately 3,444 requests and 3,866 firearms recovered in the state of Connecticut in the year 2024. It's a very successful system. We are asking that all Connecticut police departments opt in to this system.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. I know we, by putting a bunch of stuff into one bill, we always create a little bit of a juggernaut when, sections and all that stuff. Just the only question I have before I open up to the committee is, if you could speak just slightly to the gun transfer, the 3 a month piece, which is a proposal that I know a couple years ago we had gone in the other direction, and kind of what the rationale is and where the benefit is to kind of tighten that language up a little bit.
Yeah. So before I tap in one of the members of CSP, the transfer of 3 guns per month within 3 guns within a 30-day period really speaks to estate transfers. Families that are already going through, the grieving process after someone passes away are only able to transfer 3 guns within the 30-day period. This language clarifies and enables the CSP Special License and Firearms Unit to do their work and also relieve the cumbersome process for those families. Did you want to add anything, Cap or Sarge? No.
So we've been denying in those cases because of the way the statute's written, that we've had to, despite understanding the circumstances, had to tell. I see heads nodding. So, no, I think that is the right thing to do as well. So, with that, I'll open up to members of the committee. Representative Howard.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner. A couple of quick questions. One, and I don't see Dr. Valero here, so if you have to get back to me on this, I certainly understand. But the section 1 about the sex assault kits, are they currently being stored in refrigeration at the lab? Do you know? Is that the problem?
I am not absolute certain as to whether or not they're being stored in refrigeration. However, Rep. Howard, I will say that we are at or near maximum capacity for storage right now.
Right. Well, so, and perhaps this may be a question for the Chief State's Attorney as well, but one of the issues I think, and if we could get this from Dr. Valero, it seems to me that when we send these sex assault kits, the kit themselves, the box, to the lab, all of the necessary evidence is collected then, and then it's sent back to the police. There's not really not much evidentiary value left to it. So if we're going to transfer the onus of storage to the individual municipalities, who, by the way, are already faced with storage problems. For example, when we do risk protection orders, we're storing guns in some cases into perpetuity because the statute there's no way to get rid of them, right? So I don't want to put all these storage things back in municipalities if it's not necessary. So I guess my question for Dr. Valero, if you were here, or for you, would be, is there still evidentiary value to that? And again, that may need to go to the Chief State's Attorney's office. Do we even need to hold those kits afterwards? So if you have a comment on that now.
That specific question would be best answered by the Chief State's Attorney's office and Dr. Valero. However, I will add that what we're asking for aligns with existing practices of evidence that is returned for homicide cases and robbery cases and other serious assault cases. That evidence is returned to the police departments after it is processed.
Right. And I think in those cases, so like if you were say investigating a homicide with a knife and it's got blood-like substance on it, it goes to the lab, they swab it, the fingerprint, whatever they're going to do, but the knife itself is still evidence. It comes back that the police need to hold. I guess my question would be, how much evidence is actually left in the kit? I've never heard of a sex assault that I can think of trial where there's somebody holding that box up there. So I'll direct that question to the Chief State's Attorney and Dr. Valero, or if you can get that from Dr. Valero, if he feels there's still evidentiary value. And the other question is regarding we've changed, and some of the security companies have brought attention to the word completed. I don't know if you saw their testimony yet. It's in section 5 on page 13 in line 391. The way that I read, so the security companies have raised concerns that there's a backlog in them getting their licenses, new applicants. Which I'm sure IDEMIA has probably helped speed that up some, but I would imagine, given your staffing, there's still some backlog. What we did was we allowed for those individuals to work sort of in a, in a sort of pending their license, be able to work. They're concerned about the word complete. So the way that I read that is not necessarily that they can't work until their application license is completed, but that they have submitted a complete application. So I guess, if you know, if I'm applying to be a security officer and I submit an incomplete application, how am I notified that my application is incomplete?
Speak to that? Sure. I'm going to ask one of our members of that unit to speak to
All
that.
right, sorry. Thanks.
No worries. Thank you.
I was gonna get her up here one way or another, so.
That's right. You can go right to the side here.
Why
Yep.
don't you grab a chair?
Yep.
Come on over.
And
Yeah.
just make sure you identify yourself for the record. Welcome, Sergeant.
Either one.
Either one.
Good morning, Sergeant Brianna Maurice. I am the sergeant in the Special Licensing and Firearms Unit. In regards to your question, Representative Howard, the packet, if we receive the application into our office and it is not complete, meaning it does not have the payment, does not have the fingerprints, it is returned back to the individual. A form letter is put on the front indicating what the application is missing,
Mhm.
and it is then mailed back to them to then provide whatever additional information we're requesting.
So do you need the word complete there then? Because so in that scenario, if I submit you an incomplete application, you've advised me it's incomplete, I'm basically just keep working because it's quote unquote pending. Is that why you feel you need the word complete there?
Correct. What we were finding was happening is people would not, they'd mail in the application portion, but they would not submit to the fingerprint background. And so that's where we were getting hung up, is we were in essence allowing people to work without a confirmation of a positive or negative criminal history.
Which they could do forever.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So their concern is the word complete in there, but I maybe there's an avenue where we can alleviate that once they've been notified. So if you notify an applicant that it's incomplete, they can continue working for whatever, 14 days, 21 days. But at that time, if they have not done anything to complete it, then they can't work anymore. Would that sort of suffice?
I
Yeah.
would say, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And
Thank
thank you,
you.
Commissioner and Sergeant Maurice. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Vice Chair Gigi Von Carlo.
Thank you, sir. Hi, sir. How are you? The part on the taser, where a security guard, uniformed or non-uniformed, can carry the taser. We passed that taser bill last year. I had a ton of complaints called into me that we took away some defense for women who may have carried that taser that not necessarily want to carry a gun permit, not want to obtain a gun permit. But in this language here, do you see any road or any opening for down the road where a person that does not so much want to carry a firearm, but does want to carry maybe that handheld taser that goes over a certain voltage? Do you see anywhere we could have a special permit for that person? A background check, a permit, open a road for someone that, again, that doesn't necessarily want to carry the gun, afraid of carrying the gun, but still has some protection on their person to, feel much safer in certain environments.
Rep. Von Carlo, I have not contemplated that, but we will take that back and have some conversation about that. I am concerned about weapons and weapons being issued or carried by anyone without any training. So that is something that is in the forefront of my mind. So that's how I will approach it. But I do hear you, and I am familiar with that conversation, that discussion that took place last
Yeah,
session.
and I do mean same rigorous background check, same training. You have to check all the boxes, but I just think that we taken away a little bit of a protection for certain individuals that may not want to get that gun permit, but also want to have some kind of personal protection. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Questions from members of the committee? Just as a side piece, I was looking through the testimony on HB 6853 with the traffic information. I know Ken Barone is going to testify later. And the agency was in opposition to adding another category, the technology stops. And I'm sure we'll have a good conversation with Mr. Barone afterwards. But just to kind of clarify, you feel like the path that it's heading now with the changing of some of the forms and all stuff, we're going to kind of get to that point of capturing that data and not need a statutory mandate to do that? If you just get a chance to speak to that.
Absolutely, Rep. Boyd. Yes, my understanding is that NextGen is actually already in the process. That change is in the works. My concern is requiring it statutorily. The root of my concern is really in what it is that we're continuing to ask our police officers to do. I'm very concerned about them being distracted, constantly looking down at the mobile data terminal inside their office. Their patrol cruiser is essentially their office. So again, the work is already being done by NextGen. So, you know, we're going forward. The other concern is that although many police departments in the state of Connecticut have NextGen, others do not. So it's gonna be somewhat of a burden on them financially to have that information or have that fix put into their records management system as well. So for those two reasons, that is why we were opposed.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I want to give you a chance to kind of talk about that. Any other questions from members of the committee? Representative Hall.
I do apologize for being a little tardy. This bill isn't before us. It's actually before the Transportation Committee. But I would love you to weigh in, and I don't want to put you on the spot. Maybe we could take it offline if you don't want to answer. Blood alcohol levels being lowered. It's on the table in transportation. Also, phlebotomy, I understand is being done in a trial situation, and I'd love to hear your opinion on both if you want to weigh in, Commissioner.
Sure. So beginning with the blood alcohol level, Representative Hall, I have been very thoughtful as my colleagues and other state agencies have in this space about how we can reduce fatalities on our Connecticut highways. That is where I began. So, you know, in thinking about the blood alcohol level, I see that as a conversation that needs to be had. I based on the number of fatalities that we have had on our road, based on the number of fatalities with an alcohol nexus to them, I cannot sit out of that conversation, and I'm willing to debate that as well. I've heard from several people who are not for it, and that's okay. But I think for our work collectively, we need to have this conversation. With regard to the law enforcement phlebotomy program, there is a pilot program going on right now that began prior to my arrival. It's a federally funded pilot program being run out of the Department of Transportation. You know, I'm not crazy about putting needles into the hands of police officers, if I can just go there. However, I am in support of other public safety professionals or other medical professionals doing that work. So what we have been doing internally within CSP is thinking creatively about how we can partner with fire, paramedics, perhaps sponsor hospital, some other resource to actually do that work.
Just a follow-up, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. So the advantage to the phlebotomy, can you speak a little bit to the advantage of that versus a breathalyzer? Why is it an advantage over the breathalyzer? Are you screening for drugs as well, I guess is what I'm saying?
The blood is more reliable. We are about to engage in some discussion myself. I talked to the Chief State's Attorney yesterday and some others about this. So I didn't come here prepared to talk about that today, but it is a discussion amongst all of us.
And Representative, one of our bills that has not been released yet will dive into this topic much deeper. So
Great. I know it's in
you
transportation
have
right
whet our
now.
appetite for the topic. So
Good. I just didn't want it to go by the wayside.
Understood.
Transportation is
Understood.
taking it and running with it. So
thank you, Senator
Thank you.
Ciccarella.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, for coming for us today. I just have a question regarding the transfers. The representative touched on transferring, an estate, multiple firearms in the event of someone passing. There may be other events where people just wanted to get rid of all of their weapons and give them to a friend, a child. Would that kind of fall into the same situation because it's one person's estate essentially, or is it have to be in the event of a death?
I don't believe the statute requires that death, but can you speak to that?
The way the statute's currently written, it specifically references transfers at retail. So if the belief is if the firearms dealer is merely just effectuating the transfer, they're not monetarily benefiting from it, then it would not fall within the confines of the 3 and 30.
Got it. So essentially, if someone, so that would be for any reason at all.
Correct.
Now, what about if it's a private transfer? We have some issues now with interpretation of federal law, and we now can't do the private transfers, which hopefully we could find a solution for that. In the event that somebody was purchasing guns from a family member or a friend, but the FFL was just facilitating that, but the FFL is not making any profit on it at all, would they be able to transfer 6, 7, 8 guns at once?
Yep, same scenario. It wouldn't be a retail sale for the FFL. They would just merely be doing the paperwork to effectuate the transfer from one to another.
Excellent. Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Thank you. Representative Palella.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioner.
morning.
Great to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Appreciate the work that you do
Thank you.
every day. Question just to follow up on 6853. Is that information that is being gathered right now? So on a traffic stop, part of a narrative that a trooper may write in their report, some of the changes that are being requested and the updating of information. Is that already part of, say, a narrative on a traffic stop, on a various call, as a trooper is putting that report together?
I Representative Paolillo, I would say more likely than not, that information is in the narrative of the police report. Yes.
Okay. So can you, and I apologize for missing some of your testimony. I've read your testimony a couple times in preparation for today, but I just wanted to follow up. So this is the statutory change, and obviously some departments are able to probably have more of a seamless transition. But I did want to look at the part that a lot of this information could be available or is available right now. It's just going to be formatted differently in terms of how troopers, how officers are then recording it. Is that correct?
You know, I would sir, I would ask that question of the author of that, and I would say it's likely for the collection of data, which I understand. But that information is, and when a police officer or a trooper is, writing their report, they're writing that in the body of the report. It's probably easier to capture if it's in a specific category. It's able easily to be searched if it's in one of the categories that's being proposed.
And just a follow up to that, as I was reading your testimony and looking at the testimony of others regarding 6853 today, and driving up here this morning from a meeting in the New Haven area, and I want to compliment the presence of troopers, of enforcement that is happening throughout the state, being on the roads every day for here and in my other life, and want to compliment you on that increased presence. So we are often hear self-initiated stops, as I was looking at laser and radar and other reasons why a stop may occur in the first place. Does that happen, folks calling in reckless driving, folks seeing a car over, a 5 or 10 mile stretch on 91, and that call comes in to 911 and a trooper is dispatched? How is that coded now, or how would that be coded? And are there fields where, if it's self-initiated or possibly self-initiated, but based upon information that's provided to a trooper or to a local municipality, is that articulated both in fields and narratives, or is there duplication across the board? As we're asking always the public to help law enforcement, and looking at your testimony yesterday, that question came to mind, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to, having seen your work over the last
Sure.
30 years and appreciating your work in law enforcement and leadership, wanted to pose that question.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Rep. Paolillo. I would say that there's two things. A call will likely be entered into the narrative of the report, but also that officer, that trooper's observations will also be a part of that narrative as well.
Thank you.
That's extremely helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Lamarck.
Good morning, Commissioner. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have a question about the section in the bill, the National Tracing Center at ATF.
Mhm.
And I'd just like you, I support this section, and I'd just like you to talk a little bit about, if you could,
Mhm.
how useful has that been in terms of conducting investigations? I really like that municipal police departments will be uploading the data to this database, but in general, how useful and accessible is it in the state? Has it been to your staff, the troopers, in terms of investigating? I mean, in my experience, I know a lot of times the guns got booked into evidence and that was it. There was no investigation of the gun. There was the investigation of
Mhm.
the crime. But I really like, I would really like to see us use our better enforce our gun laws. So how useful are you finding it?
Thank you for that question, Representative Lamore. We have found it to be extremely helpful as in our holistic approach to reducing gun violence in the state of Connecticut. It is a web-based platform that enables users to enter information in so that police departments from across the state, they're actually sharing information with one another about the life of the gun, the history of the gun, the use of the gun. We're only as good as the information that is input into the system. So what we're asking for is that in the state of Connecticut, where we've made some tremendous strides, for us to continue on that path by simply requiring all police departments to opt in and share that information so that we can have the entire state of Connecticut covered when it comes to the use and the history of a gun.
Yes, I like that answer. In terms of opting in, what would be some of the impediments for a police department to opt in? Would it be, is it the smaller police departments, it's more difficult? Is it a resource issue? Why would in your experience or from what you know, why wouldn't a police department opt in?
Representative Lamore, I don't know of any impediments off the top of my head as to why departments in the state of Connecticut would not opt in, but I would say we would certainly be willing to support and help any department in any way if there were any impediments to them opting in. Again, this is for the greater good, for the benefit of all of us.
Yeah, I see the possibilities for this are huge. I mean, what you said, the life of the gun, to start linking up crimes, the same gun, various crimes. And I know law enforcement in the past has focused on the shooters, which is important, but it's equally important to focus on the gun, because sometimes the shooter gets locked up, but the gun is still out there and pops up somewhere else. So I applaud this and thank you for your answers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. The good vice chair for the second time.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, just about one more follow-up on the racial data profiling form. So I think that I actually proposed it to put it in statute because I've asked a couple of years for it and it's been delayed a little bit. I think it's been delayed. It's coming now. Gordon, I did speak to Ken. He said it is coming to next gen, but I think it's very important to city officers that are working traffic and making 10, 20, 30 stops a day that I think that the justification of the stop should be on that form. It's a simple box. We're checking off. I can't tell you how many we're checking off as it is when you pull somebody over, but I think it's important just to officers' mental state that, hey, you know, in this day and age where pressure is on the officer that, yeah, I may have stopped 30 cars, but 27 of them were technology stops. I didn't stop that car. A violation that a machine picked up stopped that car. So that's that. To me, I think it's a very important, if we're obtaining all this data, I think that's one of the important pieces that should be thrown into that data, just to get that officer's mind in the right spot that, hey, I'm just stopping cars that this machine's telling me to. I'm not picking any certain person or gender. It's just, I think it's a very important box that should be added to there. Even if it's next gen or if it's a piece of paper you're checking off, it's just one more check box in a group that you would have had to check something anyways. That was my only thought to that, is I think it's very important for the police officers out there in this day and age to have some kind of also defense to, hey, well, you pulled this many cars over. And I think it's a very important piece. And that's why statutory, I don't think we should do it. I think Mr. Barone has said he wants to do it, but I've also heard it, I've asked a couple times in the past and it hasn't been done. So that's the only reason it's statutory. I think it's, I respect everybody's opinion, but I think it's very important to that road officer to have, some kind of protection that says, hey, I'm not stopping these cars in my machine. So thank you, sir.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner, I just want to thank you and your entire team through all the issues we work through. Your agency is transparent. We appreciate what all your divisions do on a daily basis. Sometimes it's not the easiest work. So thank you for spending some time with us today.
Thank you. It's good to see you all.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome back to the committee, Comptroller Scanlon. Comptroller Scanlon, I think last time you were here, you were surrounded by police dogs. So we don't have quite the escort this time, but
one of whom had defecated on the floor next to me. So
go there, but that was in the record. So, but anyway, welcome back.
it's all up from there. Well, good morning, members of the committee, Chairman Boyd, Chairman Gaston, ranking members. Good to be here with you again. I am here today to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1239, an act concerning a fallen officer and firefighter fund. I won't go into reading my full testimony. As a former legislator, I know I don't need to do that for you all, other than to say it is one of the greater honors of me being comptroller that I oversee the Fallen Officer Fund and to have worked with this committee and specifically Representative Candelora in 2023 and 2024 in the aftermath of the tragic murder of 2 officers in Bristol to create the state's first Fallen Officer Fund and now to administer it. Tragically, I have had to use this fund 2 times since we have been together last session. And it is great that you are working today on a proposal that would add firefighters to this fund. I respectfully come with 2 additional changes that I would suggest making. The first is to rename this fund the Fallen Hero Fund. And the second was, in addition to covering police officers and firefighters, I would also suggest that you add emergency medical service providers as well, EMTs and paramedics, so that every first responder who puts their life on the line every day for us in the state would be covered in the event that they are tragically killed in the line of duty performing the job of helping the people of the state. So with that, I will stop and just thank you for raising the underlying bill, which I strongly support, but would request those 2 changes. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you. And I appreciate your leadership on this. When this first got launched, there were lots of discussions about, do we start off big? Do we kind of work our way through it? And you've certainly, had a vision to get to this point from the beginning, and we appreciate that. One of the questions I think that came up from folks who are reading this for the first time, and of course, the name of the act, right, is providing health insurance coverage to survivors. Can you just speak to a little bit of what that piece of it looks like? 'Cause I think there's some confusion in the community about it.
Yes, the Fallen Officer Fund was created in law in 2024, but it was really created in 2023 at the back of the state budget. There was very vague language that gave me the power to create it, and it was put in there by Representative Candelora. I worked with him in 2023 to design it. We got a sort of a MOU of what we thought that would be, and then you guys codified it. But the reason why we came with health insurance coverage was because when we met with Chief Gould from Bristol and got his advice about what he thought was most needed and could most help these families, it was health insurance. In the case of Bristol, one of the officers' wives was pregnant during after the shooting, and through no fault of the Bristol Police Department, she was immediately terminated off her husband's health insurance. And so at a time when you've just lost the most important person in your life and you have to build up from there, you shouldn't have to worry about how to take your kid to the doctor or how to go to the doctor yourself. So we put that in the bill in 2024 to say that if the municipality does not offer health insurance to the spouse or those children or to continue that coverage, that I, as the comptroller who runs the largest health plan in the state, will offer that health insurance to that family and those children for a term of 5 years after the line of duty death of their loved one. And again, I think that offering that support to these family members during that time is just one less thing that we can do to take a burden off of them, given the tremendous loss that they've just suffered.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification on that. Co-chair Gasson.
Thank you, and thank you, Comptroller Scanlon, for your work on this. You've done a tremendous job, and I think that we are at a place where we intended to get to in the beginning. I had a quick question to see whether or not you had done any homework on how many towns or municipalities actually might be already offering health services to individuals who may, pass in the line of duty to go to their spouses. And do we have any information on that? And let's say, for example, they do offer it, but they only offer it for 3 years. Would this bill supplement it the additional 2 years in the event that somebody's not covered for the 5-year period in a municipality or a town?
It's a good question, Senator. And I don't have the answer, and we have not done the research of what exact coverage there is for people. In the case of Bristol, they went in and changed their contract to make sure that those folks still got it, which I'm sure would be the case in a lot of communities. But there are some towns that are not able to do that, and that was the impetus for us putting this in there, that would be an option for them if there wasn't another option for them. And I think that again is that peace of mind that we all want to offer. But we can certainly do some homework on that, Senator, and get back to the committee. But I think it's very different on a town by town basis.
Thank you. Other questions from members? Representative Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Comptroller Scanlon, for being here. First, I have to say I heard you on the radio this morning and you were fantastic. And I invite you to Glastonbury for pizza because we do have some of the best pizza in the state.
Thank you.
So can you just explain how this works? So when there's a tragedy, does your office automatically reach out to the family, or does the family have to contact you? Can you just describe that process?
Without getting into too much personal detail to protect the family and some conversations that I'd say what has happened in the 2 times that we've utilized this is that I make contact with the police chief, or in this case, in the last line of duty death we had of Trooper Aaron Pelletier, the commissioner and I were on the phone that afternoon talking about this, and there is a bit of paperwork that has to be done by the family for us to make the payment. But the other thing that I think is good about the Fallen Officer Fund is that we can do this immediately. And whenever that loved one is ready to do that paperwork, which again is a sensitive topic, and it's not something that we are leading with obviously in that period, but typically in the first 48 to 72 hours after the death, or whenever that person is ready, we will have a trusted person that they are working with work with us to get that paperwork filled out, and then we immediately get that check to them. And we can immediately enroll their family into this coverage if they don't have it provided to them right now. So the goal of it is to happen quickly. This $100,000, there are a lot of programs in law enforcement, particularly I think it is for the fire service too, where over time, maybe there are some national programs that help financially with these families, but that takes time. The goal of this is to get that $100,000 as quickly as we possibly can, to pay for things like funerals, to pay for family traveling across the country, to pay for things, terrible to say, like suits for little kids that never had one before to wear to their dad's funeral, right? So these are just things that we're trying to get as quickly as we can to the family.
Thank you. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions? Representative McGorty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Comptroller, welcome.
Good to see you.
I heard you say that you want to change the name to Heroes Fund, adding EMS. Was there one other there that I missed? Or just
Well,
those 2?
Just that the firefighters are added into the current bill before the
Yep.
committee. My change was to add EMS so that police, fire, and EMS are all covered in this fund in the future, and that we would call it the Fallen Hero Fund, as opposed to having a very long title of the Fallen Officer, Firefighter, EMT, Paramedic Fund.
Sounds good. I don't think that's going to be a heavy lift here today
I agree.
with this committee. Appreciate all the work that you have done with this, and even, making it all into Heroes, which is really great. And then the other thing is you were excellent on PLR today, and you have more than one Republican friend, Senator DeFazio. So thank you for coming in. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. And I know, Representative, you serve in the EMT services as well. And so thank you for what you do. And good to know that Chaz and AJ's listenership is quite high on the Public Safety Committee.
Yeah. Fortunately, I don't get it in my part of the world, so I'm missing out. So, all right. Any other questions? Representative Heffern.
How are you? I just want to say, being a former first responder and firefighter, that I thank you for your support on this bill. I think it's very important. The wheels of government turn slowly, and we've gone pretty quickly on this, and as we should. So thank you, and to the good representative from Glastonbury, I have to tell you that West Haven's pizza is pretty darn good. I don't know. We'd have to arm wrestle over that one. So, but again, thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Representative.
Everything seems to end with pizza in this building. So, all right. With that, Comptroller, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Yep. Next we have Olivia Wrinkles. Olivia, oh, come on up. Welcome. Make sure you push the button. And the floor is yours. Welcome.
And good morning, and thank you to the Public Safety and Security Committee for the opportunity to testify. My name is Olivia Rinkus from the town of North Stonington. I'm also an undergraduate at UConn studying political and cognitive sciences. I'm testifying today as a taxpayer and mental health advocate in opposition to SB 1241, an act concerning the expansion of the Crisis Initiative pilot program. While I recognize the good intentions of this bill to meet some of the needs of individuals with mental health needs, the crisis program is not an adequate replacement for, accessible, affordable, preventative mental health treatment programs. Police officers are not trained to provide mental health care, and no amount of on-the-job training can provide an adequate replacement for the care that can be provided by a medical professional, who has spent years learning to understand mental health and how to treat it. Studies have consistently shown that treatment of mental health needs through reactionary policing and involuntary commitments will actually cause mental health issues to worsen. A 2024 study by E.M. Lauder, published in the journal Social Science and Medicine, studied the outcomes of police and mental health co-response versus solely police response to calls relating to mental health. Found that there was no significant difference in the outcomes when a co-response team is used rather than a solely police response team. This is a strong indication that rather than continuing to put money towards emergency services to expand the crisis program, we should be putting those resources towards the medical and mental health services that will actually do more to help individuals with these needs rather than increasing the potential for harm to themselves or their community members. At a time when the federal government is making statements that indicate immigrants with mental health needs are making our country less safe, it is important for our legislators to take a strong stand against the perpetuation of the idea that mental health needs should be criminalized and responded to with punitive force and involuntary care or hospitalization. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And you have been consistent over the years coming up and testifying, and we certainly appreciate the engagement. Questions from members of the committee? Hearing none, thank you for your time. Next, I'd like to call Ken Barone. Welcome back, Ken. I'm sure it's a little bit like watching the trailers before the movie, seeing coming up soon, but
a little bit.
Welcome back.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Good morning, Representative Boyd, Senator Gaston, Representative Howard, and distinguished members of the Public Safety Committee. I'm here this morning speaking on behalf of the Connecticut Racial Profiling Prohibition Project Advisory Board, a board that's been in place since 2012, over 20 stakeholders and members that's met monthly for the better part of 10 years to try to think through and understand the issue of racial profiling. I'm here to talk about House Bill 6853, which proposes requiring that police report whether an alleged traffic violation leading to a stop was detected through automated means such as radar, laser, or automated license plate reader, as an example. There's a provision of the current statute that allows the advisory board to make a recommendation to OPM that additional data fields be mandated to be collected by law enforcement. The law itself actually only outlines maybe 5 or 6 required pieces of information. And then there's a catch-all phrase that says, and any other information deemed appropriate. Last spring, the Profiling Board debated adding a checkbox which would require police officers to report if any technology such as radar, laser, or license plate reader was used, to require that police report that. The board voted unanimously to require that information to be collected. At that point, we started working with the Criminal Justice Information System to modify our data collection portal. We then put out technical coding to all the vendors, not just NextGen, all the vendors in Connecticut. On August 1st, we issued a general notice through the Post, Police Officer Standards and Training Council, to all police departments, indicating that a new mandated field, in addition to for 2 or 3 other fields that we're also mandating that will be new, be collected. We are at the mercy of vendors because we don't have money to offer them. And so we have been working with all of the vendors to have this change made at no cost to municipalities. NextGen, being the largest vendor, should have the change implemented by April. Some of the smaller vendors already have the change that's been made and implemented. And by July 1st of this year, we anticipate that every department in Connecticut will have the change made because, again, it's a mandate. So the board's position is that we're already collecting this information. We don't believe that it's necessary to mandate it in statute because we've essentially already done that through the administrative process. Now, I'm happy to take any questions or provide any additional clarification. Again, really appreciate the work of the committee and the support of the work that we've done over the last 10 years.
Thank you, Ken. The gentleman from Waterbury.
Thank you, Ken, for coming. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on the administrative part, how were you guys collecting that data? If it was a LPR or was that being collected?
So actually, we've always made attempts to try to collect that information. So there's a category in the system currently today that's been in place since 2013 that requires police to report whether the stop was made using general enforcement techniques, blind enforcement techniques, or as part of a spot check. We always defined blind enforcement as when police used radar, laser, a license plate reader because they were blind to the motorist. They were using technology to guide their enforcement. And we would often in our data set look at if a police officer reported a stop as blind and it was a speed related stop, because we also collect the statutory reason for the stop, we could make an assumption that radar or laser was used in making that stop. What we have learned over the last 10 years is that that blind designation was very confusing for officers. And so the information wasn't coming in as cleanly as we'd like. So the change we made to try to address what we're talking about today is changing the designation of blind to T for technology. So it's a very small change that will, I think, clarify for officers that when they use any technology, radar, laser, license plate reader are the 3 big ones. Instead of putting the designation B for blind, the designation will now be T for technology. That in combination with the reason for stop will be able to very easily tell us the type of technology that was used to make the stop.
All right, thanks. And that's what I was looking for, is to get rid of the assumption part of it, make it clear as day. Representative from Stonington.
If I could just add too, we've also made significant attempts to improve training around the data that's being collected. So we are now holding training twice a year at the Police Academy, once in March and once again in August. We will do that every year. It'll be open to any police department that wants to send an individual, where we will walk through the reporting requirements for not just traffic stop data, but use of force. There's a number of programs we oversee now. And so that's one way we're improving. We're also finalizing a manual, which will be distributed to all police departments in Connecticut. It will have a chapter in the manual on every required police reporting, use of force, police pursuit, traffic stop data, and it's going to very clearly define each data element. So if there's ever confusion in a department, they'll have a manual they can go to, flip, say, okay, this is what that means. And we'll also be pushing out a roll call PowerPoint presentation that departments can use to clarify the data collection fields.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Actually, it's actually, hopefully, wish it could have been out a few years ago, but talking with the rep from Stonington, the blind is confusing. You have a lot of new officers hitting the roads, and it's very confusing on it. I think this really just makes it cut and dry. This is why I stopped them. This is what stopped them. And And I thank you for your efforts and I look forward to when it gets rolled out. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rep.
Thank you. Other questions from members of the committee? Representative Howard.
Good morning, Ken. Thanks for being here. The trainings that you're holding at Post, anecdotally, not that you necessarily take attendance, but how many people are showing up to those?
We held our first training in August.
Uh-huh.
There were about 120 people. We held it in the auditorium. I don't know if every department had somebody there, but most departments sent at
Okay.
least one person there. We're holding it again, a second training March 18th. We'll do it again next August. August was the first one. We'll see how many show up to the one in March.
Yeah, that's a great number. Considering there's only 97 police departments, something like that in the state. And then the next question, how many data points are you collecting now?
We currently collect about 20 pieces of information. I think actually it's 26, but a lot of that is collected automatically on the back end. So the police officer isn't necessarily clicking 26 boxes, but we do pull 26 pieces of information from the data set.
But the police officer is giving you 20 of those.
The police officer is giving us probably fewer, I'd say 15 to
Okay.
18, roughly. Yeah.
And then the other question is, how much of their data points can be derived from their license? Do you know?
From the license, not much. The demographic information, I believe gender is on the license.
Age
is on the license. So those are really the only two fields currently. We don't currently collect racial or ethnic demographics on a license.
I'm just trying to, and not today, but in this context, the commissioner talked about trying to limit the amount of time his troopers are staring at a computer screen for their safety, which is one thing. Two, the amount of time on the side of the road. We had, as we all know, a trooper tragically killed last year because he was on a car stop on the side road. So the less time they're there, the less opportunity for that to happen. And then also just try to free them up a little bit. So, I mean, as we advance with these records management systems, I just always try to keep an open mind to, can we collect these data points in a more streamlined fashion? So the troopers, I assume, or the police officers are running licenses anyway as a matter of practice when they stop cars to make sure that the license is active and the person's not wanted. So any of those opportunities that pop up, and I know there's been pushback in this building to sort of adding race to the driver's license and whatnot, and I understand the opposition to that.
I think there's a couple things. One of the biggest things we started doing a few years ago is integrating e-citation, electronic ticket data. So most police now, not all, but particularly the bigger agencies, have the printers in the cars. They can issue electronic tickets. So if a police officer has to fill out the information in the computer for the electronic ticket, we pull all of the information from the electronic ticket and put it into what they call the profiling tab. So the police officer isn't duplicating efforts there. We've done the same with electronic warning. That's not being used as much as we'd like, but electronic warning, right, is a paper warning. It's the same thing. If they decide to use that, we're pulling information from that tab. In terms of adding additional information to the license, it's been a debate we've had for 12 years. I think we probably would have liked if that had occurred 12 years ago. It takes, if we made that change today, it would take 8 years to have everybody's license in the state of Connecticut updated. But certainly, I think there has been lots of discussion both with law enforcement and with our stakeholders on, in a perfect world, an officer would scan a license, we'd pull all the demographic information from the license. They wouldn't have to provide their assessment or assumption or perception of race. It would just be right there baked in. And the only time they would have to provide their perception would be if a person doesn't have a license, which happens rarely.
Yeah. I mean, you know what, we may be here long enough that the body cam through AI will be maybe doing some of it too, but I guess we'll see. Thanks for your testimony today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Representative DiCaprio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here this morning. Just on the training portion, is it more like a train the trainer that information is brought back to the various departments?
Yeah, so that's typically the goal, and we try to provide departments with material that they can use, for example, in roll call to refresh officers what to collect, how to collect it, how things are defined. So anybody can attend the training at the academy, but departments are typically sending supervisors who are then responsible for going back and training line or patrol officers.
That's very good. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, Ken, we appreciate
Thank
all your work and your time as well. Thanks for spending it with us today. Next, we have Peter Brown, who is virtual in the UPFFA. Welcome, Pete.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Chairman Gaston, Chairman Boyd, ranking members, and all the distinguished members of the Public Safety and Security Committee. My name is Peter Brown. I'm the president of the Uniformed Professional Firefighters Association, which represents nearly 4,000 career firefighters across the state. I'm here testifying on Senate Bill 1239, an act which expands line of duty benefits for firefighters. I submitted written testimony, but just wanted to add some brief remarks to provide context on this important issue. Nothing can prepare a family for the unexpected loss of a first responder who sacrifices their life in the course of their duties. I've unfortunately experienced this in my career, and it's truly devastating. And when it does happen, our firefighter family comes together, support the family of our lost brother or sister. We grieve with them, we console them. We promise that we'll always be there to support them as long as they need. And while that emotional support is critical to help them through this difficult time, it does nothing to address the financial burden that shortly follows. While they are trying to accept this new reality and move on with their lives, the mortgage and monthly bills need to be paid. Healthcare costs continue to add up, and groceries need to be purchased, all while trying to plan for college and retirement as an unexpected single parent. While many of our municipalities provide some level of survivor benefits, in the case of a line of duty death, these benefits are not always consistent, and they're usually insufficient to address the needs the family has. I think this bill will go a long way to provide a base level of benefit and help keep the promise that we make to our first responders when they sign up to protect our communities. They agree to take care of us throughout their careers, and in return, we will take care of their families when they make the ultimate sacrifice. I commend this committee for taking the step last session to pass similar legislation to protect our police officers. I think they deserve it and so much more for the work that they do. And I hope that we'll be available to stand and support this committee as we work to get this important bill passed for our firefighters this session. So thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are you supportive of the comptroller's suggestion that we add EMS to it and obviously change the name to be inclusive there?
Yeah, I just saw that addition this morning, and obviously we work alongside of our brothers and sisters in EMS all the time. And if there's a way for the General Assembly to include them for the critical work that they do for our communities, I think that would be great. Like I said, I just saw that change today, so I didn't really get a chance to review that too well.
Yep, understood. All right, thank you. Questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the committee? Oh, Mr. Brown, thank you for your time and adding to the testimony today.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Next, Representative Mike D'Amico. Representative D'Amico, welcome to the Public Safety Committee. We don't often see you in our hallowed grounds here, but a welcome face nonetheless. Make sure we hit the mics on both. Representative D'Amico, if you could introduce your guest.
Yes. So thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mike D'Amico, State Representative, 21st District in Farmington. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Chair, I used to work for the Public Safety Committee not that many years ago. So I'm happy to be back.
We can go full circle if you'd like.
There we go. So I am here with my constituent. Her name is Joan Martin. She is here to testify on House Bill 6852. She has an interesting perspective on this bill and related matters, and I hope you'll give her your full attention, and I hope you'll ask her a couple of questions when she has concluded. So thank you.
Thank you. Joan, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair and all the committee members. My name is Joan Martin, and I live at 1 Magnolia Circle in Farmington, Connecticut. First, I want to congratulate you and thank you for sponsoring HB 6852, an act concerning the waiver of certain criminal history record check fees for an indigent person seeking a pardon. I applaud you for recognizing that a $75 fee to the state police may be more money than an indigent person can afford, especially if they're living paycheck to paycheck or earning the minimum wage. Several years ago, I was trying to help a young homeless man to apply for a pardon. He has a low-level felony record. He was then homeless because of a fire in an apartment building where he was living. He continued working and sleeping in his car until his car was stolen. To get a copy of his criminal history record for the pardon application, he needed to go from Hartford to the public safety office in Middletown. I drove him there. The fee for the criminal history record was $75 plus $15 for having his fingerprints taken to prove who he was. The total was $90, which I paid. The pardon application process taken up was too much for him, so he is now hoping that the clean slate legislation, Public Act 2132, and that concerning erasure of criminal history records, will finally erase his criminal record. So far, only a few criminal history records have been erased. I have been reliably informed that the current date for the state to finish updating and organizing the state's criminal history records is September 2025. I am here today to urge you to use this legislative session to extend the fee waiver proposed in this bill to all Connecticut citizens who believe that their criminal history record is eligible for erasure. I also urge you to see that the new computer programs being built for Clean Slate are accessible by cell phones. The original Clean Slate website said that to access criminal records online was not available using a cell phone. I believe, excuse me, that this will limit accessibility for low-income citizens who can't afford to pay for the internet and a computer, but do own a cell phone. You have a unique opportunity this session to make a significant difference in the Clean Slate program and the people for which it was designed to help. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony in that regard. Vice Chair DG Von Cullen.
Good morning, and thank you for coming up here. When you say opening it up to all citizens who believe their criminal history record is eligible for erasure, doesn't that seem to widen the scope of people that may be working, may have the ability to pay for their criminal history record to get wiped out? I understand the clean slate, a person's down and out, but don't you think opening up, there's a lot of money being spent on records, on getting the whole system ready and created for these records to start being erased. Don't you think that opening the field puts a tremendous burden on a lot of state agencies and would cost the state a lot of money?
I think that's a good question. But I also think that the money has already been spent to create the database. We have a database in today's design, an up-to-date database, or we will have it in September. At this point, I'm assuming that the database will be such that it would only take a few seconds for a person to push the right button to get that information to a citizen. So I'm hoping that the computer program would make it very accessible for everybody. Maybe a two-factor authentication process where the person makes, goes in on their cell phone or whatever to the website, puts in their name, address, and the social security number and their phone number, and the authentication process would then set a code to their phone number, which they then put in the email, so you could double check who they were, and it would not require any significant time on the part of the state public safety system. Okay, so I think the amount of work is going to change drastically. You've already spent the money, so this is a good time to make it, to help the people that bill was designed to help.
Sure, but just to follow up with that, the clean slate had a direct, low-level felony misdemeanor, that was to be erased. When you say you want everybody with a criminal history that's eligible for erasure, it's kind of the same thing. You're asking for the same, you're not saying go outside the scope of the Clean Slate Act. Right?
Well, I don't know whether that would have, there could be if they don't have a criminal record now, or they have a criminal record that's ineligible for Clean Slate, the computer program could just say not eligible or no record.
Understood. So you're looking for someone to be able to say, hey, maybe I qualify for this. Let me put my name in and then hopefully get a response that, yes, you do qualify for Clean Slate, and then proceed forward.
Yeah, someone who has
Meets the criteria.
a criminal record
Yep.
that goes back 15 years. They may not remember the code number that they need to identify whether in fact they're eligible or not.
Very good. Thank you.
Joan, I just wanted to say something to you. Thank you so much for your kindness and your compassionate plea for people who may not necessarily be in a position to articulate issues for themselves. And we know all too often the challenges that folks who are incarcerated face, especially when they're trying to reintegrate back into society. This has been a part of my life's work. And to hear your very unique and colorful perspective, I think also help others in this chamber who may not necessarily be as closest to those issues to at least understand the realities of people all across our state, regardless of the zip code that they come from, that also experience these kinds of challenges and issues. So thank you very much for that. I also want to just say that you are, in fact, doing what I believe this nation says that we are a Christian nation. You actually are being Christ's hands and feet in terms of offering your assistance. And I want to personally say thank you for the work that you are doing and for bringing this to our attention on today. I think this is a very important issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your time, Representative D'Amico. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, Chief Priest from the Joint Fire Service Council. Chief and entourage. That's right. That's right. If you could have the fine gentlemen with you introduce themselves, make sure you turn your mics on.
Absolutely.
Floor is yours, Chief.
All right. Maybe I'll have them introduce themselves first, and then I'll go with my prepared remarks.
John Carew from the Connecticut State Firefighters Association. Jake Kelly, Bristol Fire Department.
Outstanding. All right. Well, good morning, Senator Gaston, Representative Boyd, Senator Ciccarello a moment ago, Representative Howard, and the Public Safety and Security Committee. I'm looking forward to speaking with you today. A lot of you present. Very happy to be here. My name is Greg Priest. I'm the fire chief in the town of West Hartford. And I'm very privileged to be able to lead people who have sworn to put their lives on the line in service to our community. And it is only through their support that I'm able to be up here today with you. However, I am testifying today as the Vice Chair of the Joint Council of Connecticut Fire Service Associations on behalf of our Chair, Chief Steve Hoffman. As a matter of background, the Joint Council consolidates the leadership and voices of the largest professional fire service associations in Connecticut, spanning volunteer and career firefighters, as well as labor and management. When speaking as the Joint Council, the various associations have voted to take a position on that particular matter. And therefore, we can confidently suggest that the Joint Council represents the majority opinions and interests of the Connecticut Fire Service. Under the premise that whoever speaks for the Joint Council speaks for the fire service, it is a great responsibility and it is a great honor to be in front of you here today. The Joint Council testimony and presence here is to support the concepts in Senate Bill 1239 regarding the Fallen Officer and Firefighter Fund, or the Fallen Hero Fund, as we've heard a few moments ago, and Senate Bill 1240, which is regarding the membership of the Codes and Standards Committee. For Senate Bill 1239, you've heard a lot about this morning. Very appreciative of my colleagues' prior remarks on this topic, but a public safety member's highest price is to give their life in service to others. Members of the various public safety disciplines, including law enforcement, fire service, and EMS, know this risk when we enter this profession, and we treat this concept with great reverence and acceptance, but we still head to danger every day. While we may choose this should the unthinkable happen, public safety members often voice little worry about themselves, but they do worry tremendously about those who are left behind and their welfare. Last year, the legislature saw fit to address this topic with our law enforcement brothers and sisters. And as we heard from the comptroller, it was unfortunately used. The Joint Council today is humbled, appreciative, and very supportive of the legislature's current efforts to provide the same reassurance to the fire service that has been provided to law enforcement. The fire service is thankful that the state seeks to take care of firefighters, survivors, and possibly emergency medical technicians and paramedics if they make the ultimate sacrifice. Regarding Senate Bill 1240, while the fire service is often associated with our role in responding to emergencies, it should not be overlooked that we are equally interested in preventing fires from starting, detecting them quickly, ensuring occupants get out, and generally seeking to mitigate the impacts of fire on humans and buildings. Key pillars to address these priorities relate to the construction, the detection, containment, and suppression features, and overall the rules by which safety measures are constructed and maintained. The bill introduced on this topic changes the committee's composition, who creates these codes and standards, and currently the committee membership is more oriented towards design and construction professionals. We support the change in the membership outlined in this bill, which will provide a greater comparative weight to the fire service and the fire safety perspectives while codes and standards are created. In the interest of time, I'll conclude by thanking the Public Safety Committee for its past support of the fire service and for entertaining these essential topics. The Joint Council truly looks forward to your partnership and will be working collaboratively with you, the desk leadership, the governor's office, and other stakeholders. Be glad to answer any questions or refer to my colleagues.
Thank you. Anything you guys want to add to that?
Chief, thank you for your testimony. I just want to thank everybody up there for your time and due diligence into looking into this. It's affected a lot of people sitting at this table, sitting behind us. Affected me. It was the line of duty this year. Family friend, spoke with them the other night. They are behind this 100%. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
John. From the State Firefighters Association, for the almost 20,000 members that we represent, both paid and volunteer, we are 100% behind this support also.
All right. Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the committee? I'll just be happy you don't have to comment on racial profiling stuff. So, all right. Thank you guys for spending your time here today.
Thank you. Evelise Correa Brown with BML 860. Welcome.
Testing. All right, perfect. I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me to speak today. Today, I will be speaking on two bills. The first is HB 6852, an act concerning the waiver of certain criminal history records, check fees for an indigent person seeking a pardon. The state of Connecticut has spent thousands of dollars hiring contractors because they've been unable to comply with the records removal under the Clean Slate Act. So we've already paid for contractors, we've already paid employees. And as someone who used to report these statistics to CSSD, I'm wondering why we could get certain demographics back then that we can't get now. So this is as a former employee of the Hartford Community Court and having assisted in other parts of CSSD as a contractor when I was younger. It's unacceptable. I really believe that someone who is just trying to get a job, someone who's looking for housing, people have a right to a second chance in society, and $75 sometimes can be a child support payment, it can be a grocery bill, it can be half a tank of gas and payment on something else. So if we truly want these people to be tax-paying members of society and they did their time, then we should stop holding their past mistakes over their head. Second is HB 6853, an act requiring inclusion of certain information in the standardized method of recording traffic stop information. So I don't understand why most of that information can't be transferred from the driver's license over to the ticket already. They are electronic. And I would strongly encourage that we do collect all the information possible that is automated. I do notice, though, I do get more tickets under HB than I do HW. So we should still be including that racial information in our traffic tickets. HB is Hispanic Black, HW is Hispanic White. So, that's it for now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from members? Vice Chair.
I do want to comment on the clean slate. It's also, low-level felonies and misdemeanors that people have turned their lives around. They haven't offended for 5, 8 years. And I think that also is another, way of justifying that, yeah, we're going to waive the $75 fee because you've made a tremendous effort to really turn your life around. You made a tremendous effort not to offend again 5 years, 8 years. So I do want to also add that part to the clean slate. It's just not someone that, 6 months ago is trying to clean a slate. They've turned their life around, hopefully, and they're on their way to the right track. So I just did want to comment on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Representative Howard.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Very well. A couple of questions. One, so you talked about 6853, which is the inclusion of certain information. And you said, if I heard you correctly, that you don't understand why the information proposed in this bill can't be transferred from the license. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, if lottery machines are able just to scan the back of it, I've been able to scan the back of my license using the barcode. Most of that information should be able to transfer over, and the rest.
Sure.
I mean, it's no longer filling out long reports. It's more of a click of a button.
Yeah.
And we should keep those systems updated.
Sure, I don't disagree, I guess, but the bill before us that you're testifying on simply adds that whether or not the police officer making the stop was alerted to the stop by an automated means such as radar, laser, or number plate recognition. How would you propose that that information be coming from a driver's license?
Oh, wrong bill. However, I did read that bill as well. So,
I guess
that
I'm
still
trying
is necessary information, though, because we need to make sure that these red light cameras are working correctly. If the cop's speedometer is inaccurate, when's the last time it's been calibrated? Did you witness them going through the stop sign? Was this a faulty camera? Who do you question? So maybe you might not be able to get that from a driver's license, but it's still a necessary piece of information. I mean, at the end of the day, let's say you're collecting thousands of dollars in traffic fines because of a red light camera. We just want to make sure that the money that's being collected by the municipality isn't something that's going to eventually get returned to people at a higher cost if they find a glitch.
Okay, I guess I just don't understand how that's relevant to the change made in this bill. So are you in favor of 6853?
Yeah, we should include any and all information that we can on the ticket.
Oh, okay, perfect. And then the other thing regarding the pardons, is you seem to say that the systems have been paid for. What is your understanding that the $90 is going towards?
Oh, it's $90. I thought it was 75.
Or the 75?
$75. Someone making photocopies, some clerk, getting the records out of box storage in Enfield.
So
someone who's already going to be there doing something.
Right. Okay, the legislation is relevant to fingerprint supported background checks, and
Mhm.
it's specific to waiving the fees for the fingerprints. Now, folks across the gamut in this state, whether you're applying for a pistol permit or an eligibility certificate, or you're applying to be a teacher or a coach or a camp counselor,
Guard card.
yeah, a lot of different things. You have to get fingerprints, and everybody has to pay for those fingerprints when they get them. I think, and I've supported this bill in years past, and I'll support it now, that if you're indigent, um, you know, and you're trying to get your life back together, as my friend from Waterbury said, I'm all for that. But are we in agreement that that should be narrowed to people who are actually indigent and not just everybody seeking a pardon?
I'm okay with everyone getting a waiver, but for the purposes of this bill as it's written, I would guess we can start out with people who cannot afford the fee and apply for it as long as there's a uniform form to fill out.
Okay.
And, but I truly believe that, you know, if you're going for a shot at a second chance in life and you can afford the fee, that means you're probably paying the proper taxes already and probably prepaid this. So it's just another $75 tax, but that's just my view on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would share that view along a lot of things. I mean, you need to, you know, in this state to exercise your constitutional right to possess firearms, you have to pay exorbitant fees, and those are, people have to be residents, so they're already paying taxes as well.
I'm also against those fees in
All
certain
right.
instances.
You know, I love, Elise, when you're here, because we always find these agreements, and when folks may not seem that we will, but thanks for being here. And thank you, Mr.
You've been
Chairman.
quite helpful before.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Hearing none, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Right, thank you.
Next is Gus Marks Hamilton. Morning and welcome.
Good morning. I'm also going to be testifying in support of HB 6852. Good day, Senator Gaston, Representative Boyd, Ranking Member Senator Ciccarella, Senator Representative Howard, distinguished members, and all the distinguished members of the Public Safety and Security Committee. My name is Gus Marks Hamilton, and I work with the ACLU of Connecticut Smart Justice Campaign. And like I said, I'm be here testifying in support of HB 6852, an act concerning the waiver of certain criminal history record check fees for an indigent person seeking a pardon. The ACLU of Connecticut believes in a society where all people, including those who have been convicted of a crime, should have an equal opportunity to contribute to society and build successful and fulfilling lives. People involved in the criminal legal system who have completed their sentences and have paid their debt to society have earned the right to live their lives without barriers to being happy, productive, and law-abiding residents. People with criminal histories, however, are more likely to encounter background checks that will flag a past conviction and have a negative effect on their ability to obtain housing, employment, and even attend school. 9 out of 10 employers, 4 out of 5 landlords, and 3 out of 5 colleges and universities use background checks to eliminate candidates with criminal histories. The ACLU of Connecticut opposes legislation that erects unnecessary barriers for people living with a record, and we support legislation that reduces the hurdles of background checks and helps people apply for and receive a pardon. For people who have earned the opportunity to apply for a pardon, the process can be difficult to navigate, technologically challenging, time-consuming, at times adversarial, and even expensive. HB 6852 begins to address one of these barriers for applicants who are indigent by waiving fees associated with the pardon application, such as the $75 State Police Bureau of Identification fee, if the applicant pre-enrolls online through the Connecticut Criminal History Reporting System. HB 6852 would also prevent independent contractors from charging an additional $30 convenience fee for fingerprinting, which I understand varies among police departments. I have watched many pardon hearings over the years, and a frequent answer to the question of why a person is seeking a pardon is to increase their earning potential through a job or a promotion so that they can be able to support their family. The vast majority of pardon applicants are already working, but in lower paid jobs where they struggle to support themselves. Even fees that seem modest can be barriers. For these reasons, I strongly urge the members of this committee to continue to support HB 6852. Previous versions of the bill have been unanimously supported by the members of this committee. So for all those reasons, I strongly urge the committee to again support HB 6852, and thank you for listening to my testimony.
Thank you. Appreciate your time and your testimony. Questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the committee? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Jamie Bell from the Greater Hartford Legal Aid. Jamie here. Certainly can come back. Nope. Next is Walter Summers from the Connecticut Fire Marshals Association. And Roger. I think if there was a frequent flyer card before this committee, Roger would be the gold standard in the
He
character.
wouldn't.
So
His coffee card gets punched a
That's
lot.
right,
He gets a
that's
lot
right.
of free ones.
the floor is yours, gentlemen.
Good morning, Chairman Boyd and Chairman Gaston and ranking members and other members of the Public Safety Committee. I'm Walter Summers. I'm fire marshal in the town of South Windsor. And I'm also the co-legislative aide for the Connecticut Fire Marshals Association. And we're here to testify in support of SB 1240, the Membership of Codes and Standards Committee. As you know, the Codes and Standards Committee promulgates the building and fire codes in Connecticut. And we believe, and we've worked with the chairs on the balance of that committee, and we feel that it is unbalanced, representing the fire service. Therefore, we support this bill, which would provide for 2 more people that represent the fire services in the state and rebalances the membership of the committee. One suggestion, and I think Chief Priest talked about it, was the importance of the fire chief and the fire departments on the application of the fire code, because the fire code does deal with fire department access, fire roads and stuff. And as you know, the single means of egress and the 3 and 4 family conversation does talk a lot about fire department abilities to service those buildings. So we would like to make a friendly amendment to this bill and to add 1 more member from the Fire Chiefs Association to make it an odd number 2. Committees with odd numbers work a little better. So thank you for your time, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. I did notice there was some testimony in opposition from the kind of the building inspector side there. Do you feel that adding these to the codes and standards tips the balance too far in the direction of fire safety, or it creates a parity?
I do not. The current bill, if adjusted as written, would be 15 still on the construction side and building side and 5 on the fire side. So it's still 15-5.
Okay. Because I think that's an important distinction, because I mean, the Codes and Standards Committee is probably one of the more, no offense, obscure, most important committees that exist, right? Because this is
Correct.
where the building code and the fire safety code that affects everybody is coming out of. And I think our goal is to get it right so that interests of the construction industry and the life safety side are both heard and influenced on it. So, you know, we did some work last year on behalf of the construction side. And so we want to make sure that there's that balance. So,
thank you.
Questions from members of the committee? Roger, anything you'd like to add?
As I said, we're just trying to get some sort of more of a balance on the committee than whatever 15-5, or even adding the extra person 15-6 is still heavily weighted as far as the building side goes. Just trying to get our say in whatever. We've kind of sort of been slightly pushed aside by DAS. If we
Yeah.
have it over this, last period. So we're just trying to even things out a little.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? All right, gentlemen, thank you for your time. I see that Jamie Bell is online and remote now, so welcome. And the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm Attorney Jamie Bell. I'm the Executive Director of Greater Hartford Legal Aid, which is the nonprofit low-income law firm for people who are indigent in Greater Hartford area. We serve hundreds of thousands of the low-income population in Greater Hartford. Testifying in favor of number 6852 on pardons fees. We have a general legal aid practice helping people with legal problems having to do with meeting their basic human needs for safety, shelter, basic income, food. But we also have a small and long-standing pardon process. It's an extraordinary process, as you know. It's rigorous. It's well run by the Board of Pardons and Paroles. And all of my clients are working people. Often because of the barriers of their criminal records, they're working in low-paying jobs. The fees associated with the pardon process can be onerous and a barrier to people accessing that process. But as folks have said already, most people who are working and are qualified to be for a pardon are working in jobs that they're seeking to get higher paid. A lot of my clients have been, for instance, certified nursing aides, and they're in nursing school and they want to become nurses. I've personally had several people who are provisional firefighters. And once they get the pardon, they're going to be firefighters in their town. They're just waiting for that magic certificate. Our clients are all by definition, because we're legal aid, low enough income to qualify for our services, and the extra barrier of a fee, even that seems small to more resource people, can actually be a barrier that is not necessary given the investment that the small investment that the state makes in waiving the fee will yield great benefits to the state in terms of jobs in the community, people giving back to their communities, and increasing the tax base. So we urge you to support 6852 and for indigent people waive the fees that could be barriers to them participating in the pardon process and getting their shot at continuing their path of redemption. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Attorney Bell, I don't have a question for you. I have more of a comment. Thank you so much for your advocacy and what you do on behalf of this population. We do understand the significant barriers and challenges that individuals face once they try to come back into society after serving their term. We know that in our criminal legal system, that most cases are pled out. And so there are a lot of people that assume that every person that has a conviction on their record actually committed the crime. Someone said recently they believe that everybody deserves a second chance. And I would say that, but for the grace of God, there goes I. I think we get another chance each and every day. And having a compassionate heart towards individuals who are trying to come back in society to contribute to their community and to give back is really good at helping people to not recidivate and to go back into our system. And so I always jokingly say, it's cheaper to send them to Yale than to send them to jail. But once they get out, give people the tools and competencies they need so they can be productive citizens and create healthier and safer communities. So continue that great work, and I look forward to supporting this measure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Tom Maloney, who is virtual. Tom, are you?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Excellent. The floor is yours, sir.
Great. Distinguished chairs, Boyd and Gaston, Vice Chairs Slapp and DG and Von Carlo, ranking members Howard and Cicciarella, and members of the Public Safety Committee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My name is Tom Maloney. I'm from North Stonington. I'll keep my testimony short as it relates to a fairly narrow topic amongst the many bills being discussed today. I would like to express my support for HB 6859, specifically the language of Section 7 that would remove the remove the limit of 3 guns per month in cases of probate. I would also suggest that any bulk transfers amongst family members would also be considered by this committee as a modification to this language. It shouldn't require a death in order to be able to pass on firearms to family members. It may be that an individual has simply gotten to the age where they're not able to enjoy those firearms, and they would derive more enjoyment from seeing their family members take them on rather than wait until they've passed on. I understand the premise and the intent of the 3 and 30 limit is to prevent straw purchasing. While I vehemently oppose that limit across the board as misguided and ineffective, it's clear that it's not relevant in these probate and family situations. These guns are already owned. They're not being purchased at retail and transferred, for nefarious reasons. So I would respectfully ask the committee to support that language, removing the 3 and 30 limitation in probate. And again, maybe think to extend that to broader family situations. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of this committee, and thank you very much.
Tom, thank you for your time, and certainly something we can look a little deeper into the family dynamic in that situation as well. Representative Howard, who I believe is your state representative, Tom.
Yes, he is.
Hey, hi, Tom. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Did you watch earlier when Sergeant Maurice from SLFU was testifying?
I did.
So the way the SLFU, according to her, is interpreting it, the language that came out of the bill in 2023 was at retail, and apparently they are permitting those transfers among family members already. Does CCDL have a different opinion on that?
I believe we do. Matt Strasser, our legislative chair, is 2 speakers after me. I believe he's actually talked to some people that may have seen that situation. I don't want to speak for him, but our understanding was that was a real situation to be challenged. I was kind of surprised hearing that language. It was counter to my understanding, and that could be simply my misunderstanding of the language. So I don't have a firm answer or examples where probate has been accepted, an exception.
All right, and I'm being corrected by my good friend from New East Haven or North Haven or wherever it is that you live. That Sergeant Maurice was indicating that when this bill passes, that may encompass that. So I'll keep an eye on it. But thanks for being here. Appreciate you as always, and thanks for the continuing work that CCDL does. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Howard.
Senator, anything? No. Okay. Any other questions from members of the committee? Okay. Thank you, Tom, for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Next is Sarah Parker McKernan, who is online from the New Haven Legal Aid. Sarah, you out there?
Yep. Hi. Can you hear me?
Welcome.
Yep.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Senator Gaston, Representative Boyd, and distinguished members of the Public Safety and Security Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of HB 6852 as it relates to fee waivers for costs associated with pardons applications. My name is Sarah Parker McKernan, and I am a legislative policy advocate for Connecticut's legal services programs, which include New Haven Legal Assistance, Greater Hartford Legal Aid, and Connecticut Legal Services. The legal services programs provide free legal services to low-income individuals in civil matters throughout the state. HB 6852 addresses the fees involved with the many aspects of a pardons application. Recognizing the burden these fees can place on low-income pardons applicants, the 2021 legislature authorized fee waivers for indigent clients seeking pardons but unable to pay the $75 fee associated with obtaining the required criminal history records. While this was a substantial step forward in increasing access to pardons, there remains a multitude of fees associated with additional aspects of the process. In 2022, the legislature passed PA 227, which authorized third-party electronic fingerprinting submissions through the Connecticut Criminal History Reporting System, as well as a $30 convenience fee for the independent contractors administering these submissions and submitting them to the State Police Bureau of Identification. To date, access to a fee waiver has not been authorized for this $30 fee. A $30 fee may seem negligible, but for our clients, it can be insurmountable. Inconsistencies in fees and policies at police departments throughout Connecticut also negatively affect low-income individuals. Additional fees are often levied by individual police departments, including service fees and federal criminal history report fees. Some police departments are turning clients away for fingerprinting and requiring that they pre-enroll online through the CCHRS. This requires individuals to prepay the $75 fee plus a $2.25 service fee with a credit card or debit card. In some instances, there is also an additional $13.25 fee for a federal criminal history report. There is no ability to apply a fee waiver prior to this prepayment. Often may be no way for low-income individuals in these areas to get a much less expensive fingerprint card. Additionally, many of legal services clients do not have a credit or debit card or access to the internet. In this case, not only is income a barrier, but technology is also an obstacle. Authorization for fee waivers must become available not only for the $30 independent contractor convenience fee, but for all fees associated with the pardons process. Our clients are typically living at less than 125% of the poverty level, which is $39,000 for a family of 4, which is the same standard used to determine eligibility for fee waivers within our court system. We have mirrored that statute for the purpose of the fees associated with the pardons process. That statute establishes a rebuttable presumption that a person is indigent and unable to pay a fee if they receive public assistance or their income is 125% of the federal poverty level or less. The most common reason given for seeking a pardon is to increase employment opportunities. The pardons process is a chance at a fresh start and can lead to more opportunities for themselves and their families. Obstacles such as the absence of fee waivers should not be what prevents them from moving forward. Thank you. And can I also just add, Gus from ACLU brought up that this did pass unanimously out of committee in the past, and it also passed unanimously out of the House. So this is not a new proposal. It's something that's received bipartisan support, and we hope that it moves forward this year. Thank you.
Thank you. And the senators in the room have taken note. Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yep, still morning. Good morning. Thanks for being with us. I just want to clarify a couple things that you said. So when folks have to go onto the CRIS system for the electronic means of doing it, there's no way for them to put a waiver. It's your understanding that, well, at least let me say this to you. It's my understanding, please tell me if you think I'm wrong, that once we pass this bill, they'll be able to bypass that immediately once they sign on, correct?
Well, they'll be able to have access to the fee waiver application. So they will, at that point in the game, immediately have access to, first of all, the knowledge that they could actually apply for a fee waiver. They would be able to submit it and hopefully get approval for it. But that could take a bit to get the approval. That we know. So our hope is that, yes, this will establish a clearer point of entry into the fee waiver system for these folks and speed up that process.
Right. So if we pass this bill and you know, the less important chamber manages to get it passed this time, then perhaps it would look like this. If I'm seeking a pardon and I can prove I'm indigent, I make application, I get the application. Then when I sign on and register for my fingerprints electronically, I pay $0. That's how you're envisioning it would work, right?
If the fee waiver has been approved, yes.
Right. Okay. Yep, that was my only question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions? Seeing none, Sarah, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have our last scheduled, and we'll see if anybody else wishes to testify, but Matthew Strasser. Welcome, sir. You could make sure the mic is on in front of you there. And a quick introduction and who you represent. The floor is yours.
Appreciate it. My name is Matthew Strasser. I'm here to represent the Connecticut Citizens Defense League as their legislative coordinator. And I'd like to say good morning to the distinguished chairs, Boyd and Gaston. I wonder if Derek Slapp is hopefully joining us on Zoom. DJ Giancarlo, Howard Cicerella, and the other members of the Public Safety and Security Committee. I'm here this morning to express my support for House Bill 6859. In 2023, Connecticut passed sweeping anti-gun legislation that drastically affected the gun owners in this state. Many people are still surprised to hear about the aspects of this 102-page law they weren't aware of when the law was passed. I would like to concentrate my testimony this morning on sections 7 and 8 of 6859. Section 7 contains language that would fix what I consider an oversight in the 2023 legislation. Part of the governor's bill was to limit transfers of handguns to permit holders to just 3 handguns a month. There were provisions for police departments, museums, or even exchanges of firearms in a retail setting, like returns of a firearm for another firearm. This bill adds another exemption to the 3 handguns per month limit to those accepting possession of firearms transferred from an estate. We heard earlier during Commissioner Higgins' testimony that the limit only affects for sale at retail transfers, but I believe that there is a discrepancy here, or a disconnect here. If that were the case, would this legislation be proposed? That bill at 6667 ended up being 2353, and I can quote it. Basically, the commission shall not offer more than 3 authorization numbers for sale at retail of a pistol or revolver to any transferee within a 30-day period. That's not exactly how it's working in the real world. I'm hearing from FFLs, these are dealers. I'm hearing from citizens who are looking to inherit their father's estate or their grandfather's this. Sorry, I don't mean to be gender specific there, but parent or grandparent, and they're running into problems. Some of these estates are large, and these people are having to wait up to a year to resolve this, or in some cases longer, or as long as 2 months sometimes. One member who reached out to me had an issue where he went back, what he thought was 30 days later. They said, nope, you've got one more day, and I'm not really sure that one day where he inherited 3 firearms in one day, now 31 days later, the next 2 is keeping anybody safer in the state of Connecticut. So I'd just really like to support that, and hopefully, I want to say fix what I think is a discrepancy, something that should have been, and I think it was attempted too. I do believe when they said, for sale at retail, I think that was the goal. But it's just not working that way in practice. So thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I'm open.
Understood. Thank you for your time as well. Representative Howard.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Matt. So just so I have clarification on this. So I have a brother-in-law who has a pistol permit. If I have 4 firearms today and I want to give all 4 of them to him, I have to go through a transfer process to do that. I'm not selling them. I'm not an FFL. I don't run a store. I have enough things to do. As you understand the way that the law is being applied today by SLFU, I can only give him 3, and then 30 days later can give him the 4th one. That's how it's being applied according to the experience of your membership. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct, as long as those firearms are handguns. So this is specifically tailored toward handguns. If one of those was a rifle, he'd receive them all on the same day, but you can't receive more than 3 handguns in a 30-day period, regardless of what you're paying for them. And that's happening right now. On Sunday, I reached out to the membership, oddly enough, via a Facebook post. And 12 hours later, I had a half a dozen people who were affected saying, hey, that's been a problem in my life, and I mean, I'm friendly with the local dealers who are dealing with this as well. They're dealing with loss of sales because they can't transfer as many. And maybe there's part disconnect there, but they're not transferring them for nothing, because you can't walk into a gun store and expect them to do something for you for free.
Right.
So there's a loss of business there as well.
All right. Understood. And I appreciate it. And I think that in cooperation with SLFU, we could probably work through that. Sounds like everybody is trying to get to the same place on this. Just a matter of working out the wording. There may be an attorney or 2 walking around this building that can help us do that. So,
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else, comments or questions? All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you all very much.
And coming out to testify. Is there anybody else before the committee that wishes to testify? Yep. Renee is giving me the thumbs up that there is a Dom Bastille who wishes to testify. If you can introduce yourself, the floor is yours, Dom.
Good morning, distinguished members of the Public Safety and Security Committee. I
Dom,
ask that you.
could you
Yes,
please
sir.
turn your camera on so that we can see you?
I am calling from work.
Okay,
and
Dom,
I
no problem. Thank you.
work in a federal installation, and I'm not allowed to photograph any of the interior of the building.
Proceed.
Thank you for your understanding. I ask that you support HB 6859 and act concerning the portion of the DESPP regarding firearm transfers. I applaud the proposed exemption to the 3 gun a month rule when it comes to bequeathing said property through an estate. As someone that is currently in the position of as a trustee to an estate, I can attest that the disposition of assets is a rather cumbersome task. I believe that the intent of the 3 gun a month law was to curtail straw purchases, but this is clearly not the case when settling an estate. It is overly burdensome and quite frankly, a bit cold-hearted to have still grieving family members continually return to an FFL month after month simply to honor the deceased's wishes and receive their rightful property. Another aspect of this, gentlemen, is that unfortunately, sometimes people inherit debt, someone else's debt, and it is important for them to be able to liquidate certain assets. And in some instances, one of those assets may be a small firearms collection. And in order for them to deal with that burdensome debt that they've inherited, they may need to liquidate those assets in a timely manner, not just 3 guns a month. I respectfully request that you support HB 6859 to help remedy this shortcoming. And I finally want to say thank you for allowing me to participate in this process, and thank you for your understanding of me calling from work. Have a good day.
No problem, Dom. Thank you. We appreciate people who get involved, so thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions from the committee? Nope, seeing none. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify before the committee? If not, we will close this public hearing. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it. We'll do it again next week.